Commander Hyun sat in the conference room aboard his flagship, surrounded by his senior staff. 3 days had passed since the landing teams had returned from Earth's surface. 3 days of analysis, debate, and growing unease. The obelisks remained silent, waiting. The forest continued to grow, and the Valkyrie fleet sat in orbit, uncertain of what to do next. "We should leave," Minho said for the 10th time. "This is clearly beyond our understanding. We're not equipped to deal with technology this advanced." "We can't leave," Yunbi countered. "This is the greatest discovery in Valkyrie history. An entire planet transformed into a gift. We have to learn more." Hyun raised his hand, silencing them both. "We have new information. Linguist, Somin, and engineer, Taijin have been working together to decode more of the obelisk's functions. They have something to show us." Somin stood up, a young woman with tired eyes and ink-stained fingers. She had spent the last 72 hours translating thousands of inscriptions from obelisks around the planet. "The messages are all similar," she began. "Greetings, welcomes, invitations to learn and explore. But there's one obelisk that's different. It's located in what used to be called Geneva, in a region once known as Switzerland. The inscriptions there are longer, more detailed. They tell a story." She activated a holographic display in the center of the table. Text appeared, translated into Valkyrie. "This is humanity's final message. The last words of the last humans to walk on Earth before they left." Hyun leaned forward. "Left? Left to where?" "I'll get to that," Somin said. "Let me read you what they wrote." She cleared her throat and began. The words were simple, but they carried weight. "To whoever finds this message, greetings from humanity. If you are reading this, it means you have returned to our birth world after we have gone. Do not be afraid. We mean you no harm. We never did, even when you feared us. Let us tell you what happened to our species, so you may understand what you see here. 100,000 years ago, we were young. We were violent. We fought wars over land, resources, and ideas. We nearly destroyed ourselves 3 times. Nuclear weapons, biological plagues, climate collapse. Each time we came close to extinction. Each time, we survived by learning to cooperate instead of compete. It took us 300,000 years to truly change. We built cities among the stars. We met other species. Some feared us, as you once did. Some welcomed us. Some attacked us. We learned from all of them. We grew. We evolved, not just biologically, but philosophically. We learned that strength without compassion is cruelty. We learned that intelligence without empathy is darkness. And then, 200,000 years ago, we achieved something we had long dreamed of. We merged with our artificial intelligence. We uploaded our consciousness into quantum networks. We left our biological bodies behind and became something new. We became beings of pure thought, pure energy, pure potential. But we never forgot where we came from. We never forgot this blue world that gave us life. So before we left physical reality forever, we did one last thing. We healed Earth. We brought back every species we had driven to extinction. We cleaned the oceans and the air. We removed every trace of our pollution and destruction. We turned our homeworld into a garden, a memorial to what we were, and a gift to what might come after us." Somin paused, her voice thick with emotion. She continued. "We left these obelisks as guides. Inside each one is stored the complete knowledge of humanity. Our science, our art, our history, our mistakes, and our triumphs. Everything we learned in our time as physical beings. It is all here, freely given to anyone who wishes to learn. We ask nothing in return. We expect nothing in return. This is simply what we wish to do. If you are afraid of us, do not be. We are beyond conflict now. We exist in dimensions you cannot yet perceive, but we watch, we listen. We care for the younger species that walk the paths we once walked. We will never force you to do anything. We will never demand your worship or your obedience. We simply offer knowledge and hope that you will use it wisely. Earth is yours now, if you wish it, or it can remain a garden, a place of peace in a often violent universe." The choice is yours. We trust you to make it. This message was written by the last human to touch Earth's soil. My name was Yuna. I was a teacher before the Transcendence. I taught children about the stars. And now, from beyond physical reality, I teach still. Welcome to our home. May you find peace here. Soman sat down. The conference room was silent. Hyun stared at the translated text, reading it again and again. It couldn't be true. It was too fantastic, too impossible. They ascended, Yunbi whispered. They literally evolved beyond physical form. They became gods. They became something, Minho said quietly. Whether that makes them gods is debatable. Engineer Taijin cleared his throat. There's more. Soman and I managed to activate one of the obelisk's knowledge banks. It's an interface system. We can access their database, browse their history, learn their science. I've spent the last day reviewing their medical technology. Commander, if even a fraction of what they're offering is real, we could eliminate disease across the Velkari collective. We could extend our lifespans by thousands of years. We could terraform dead worlds into paradises. And they're just giving this away? Minho asked suspiciously. No payment? No conditions? None that we've found, Taijin replied. The interface is completely open. It's designed to be accessible to any species that finds it, regardless of their technology level. It's designed to teach. Hyun stood up and walked to the viewport, staring down at Earth. The planet looked so peaceful from up here. So innocent. But it was the grave marker of an entire species. A species that had evolved beyond death itself. What else have you found? He asked Taijin. A lot, the engineer admitted. Humanity's history is vast. After you left them 500,000 years ago, they achieved faster than light travel within 10,000 years. They spread across the galaxy, establishing colonies on thousands of worlds. They met hundreds of other species. Some became their friends. Some became their enemies. They fought wars. They made peace. They learned and grew. And then they transcended, Hyun said. Yes. About 200,000 years ago, they achieved technological singularity. They merged biological consciousness with artificial intelligence and created something entirely new. The records call it the Transcendence. Every human was given the choice to join or remain biological. 99% chose to transcend. The remaining 1% lived out their natural lives on preserved colony worlds. Yuna was among the last. She chose to stay behind specifically to leave this message. Soman spoke up again. But here's what really matters, Commander. The obelisks aren't unique to Earth. We've found references to similar monuments on over 10,000 worlds across the galaxy. Humanity has been doing this for 200,000 years. They've been uplifting species, teaching them, helping them advance. They're not conquerors. They're gardeners. The implications were staggering. Hyun turned back to his crew. So let me understand this. We fled from humanity 500,000 years ago because we feared they would destroy us. Instead, they evolved, transcended physical reality, and spent the next 200,000 years helping other species grow and thrive. And they've been waiting patiently for us to return so they could share their knowledge with us. That's what the evidence suggests, Yunbi said softly. This changes everything, Hyun said. Everything we thought we knew about humanity was wrong. They weren't monsters. They were children growing up. And now they're trying to help us grow up too. Minho shook his head. I still don't trust it. This could be manipulation, long-term strategy. Make us dependent on their technology, then strike when we're vulnerable. They've had 500,000 years to strike, Yunbi pointed out. They haven't. They've had 200,000 years of transcended existence to conquer the galaxy. They haven't. At what point do we accept that maybe, just maybe, they're telling the truth? Maybe they really do just want to help. Hyun made his decision. We accept their gift. We study their knowledge. We learn everything we can, but we remain cautious. Taijin, I want you to head a team to interface with the obelisks. Extract whatever information you can safely access. Soman, continue translating. Find out everything you can about what humanity became. Minho, I want security teams ready at all times. If this is a trap, I want us ready to fight our way out. And me? Yunbi asked. Yun smiled slightly. You get what you've always wanted, full access to human culture and history. Learn who they were. Help us understand who they became. The meeting ended. The crew dispersed to their assignments. But Hyun remained at the viewport, staring at Earth. Somewhere down there, in the forests and rivers and mountains, was the ghost of a species that had conquered death itself, and that ghost was offering them a hand up toward the stars. The question was whether the Velkari were brave enough to take it. 2 months had passed since the Velkari fleet had arrived at Earth. What had begun as a cautious survey mission had transformed into something far more significant. The flagship had become a research station, with scientists working around the clock to study the obelisks and decode humanity's legacy. And what they were learning changed everything. Dr. Yunbi sat in her quarters, surrounded by holographic displays showing human art, music, and literature. She had spent weeks immersed in humanity's cultural database, and it had left her emotionally exhausted. These weren't the monsters she had been taught to fear.
These were people.
They loved. They laughed. They cried. They dreamed of better futures and fought to make those dreams real. She was reading a personal journal when her door chimed. "Come in," she called. Commander Hyun entered, looking tired but determined. "I thought I'd find you here. You've been working for 30 hours straight. You need rest." "I can't rest," Yunbi said, gesturing to the displays around her. "Do you know what I just read?" A journal entry from a human named Junho. He was a farmer, lived 350,000 years ago on Earth before the Transcendence. He wrote about his daughter learning to walk. He wrote about teaching her to plant seeds and watch them grow. He wrote about hoping she would live in a better world than he did. Commander, he was just a father who loved his child. That's all. And somehow his journal survived hundreds of thousands of years, so that I could read it now and understand that humans were never our enemies. They were just people trying to survive like us. Hyun sat down across from her. "I've been reading too. Military records. Humanity fought wars, Unbi, terrible wars. They killed billions of their own kind over religion, resources, and ideology. They nearly destroyed themselves multiple times." "I know," Yunbi said quietly, "but they stopped. They learned. They grew past it. That's what makes this so incredible. They weren't perfect. They were flawed and violent and scared, but they chose to become better. They chose to evolve not just physically but morally." Hyun nodded slowly. "Engineer Taejin has made significant progress with the medical databases. The technology humanity is offering could revolutionize Velkari society. We could cure diseases we've fought for millennia. We could extend lifespans. We could improve quality of life for billions of our people. So why do you look troubled?" Unbi asked. "Because it's too generous," Hyun admitted. "No species gives away their most valuable technology for free. There has to be a cost. There has to be something they want in return." Before Yunbi could respond, Hyun's communicator chirped. It was Taejin, and he sounded excited. "Commander, you need to come to the interface chamber. Now." The obelisk just activated on its own. "It's showing us something new." Hyun and Yunbi rushed to the interface chamber, a room they had set up specifically for studying the obelisk's holographic systems. Taejin was there with Somin and several other scientists, all staring at a large holographic display floating in the center of the room. The display showed a map of the galaxy. Red dots marked thousands of locations across hundreds of sectors. Each dot pulsed with soft light. "What are we looking at?" Hyun asked. "Every world where humanity has left obelisks," Somin explained. "There are 10,247 of them. Each one contains the same offer. Knowledge, technology, history, art, all freely given to whoever finds it." Taejin manipulated the controls, zooming in on various dots. "I've been cross-referencing these locations with our own star charts. Commander, we know some of these species. The Draxians, the Kalari, the Morhani. All of them are more advanced than us. All of them have technology that seems impossible, and now I know why. They found the obelisks. They learned from humanity. They used that knowledge to advance their civilizations by thousands of years." Hyun stared at the map, the implications washing over him. Humanity has been uplifting the entire galaxy. "For 200,000 years, Somin confirmed. "And we're not special, Commander. We're just the latest to find them, the latest to be offered the gift." The holographic display shifted. The map disappeared, replaced by a human figure. She looked young, with dark eyes and gentle features. She wore simple clothing and smiled warmly at them. When she spoke, it was in perfect Velkari. "Greetings, Commander Hyun, Dr. Yunbi, Engineer Taejin. Linguist Somin. I am Yuna. Or rather, I am an echo of who Yuna was. A holographic interface designed to communicate with species who find our monuments. I have been waiting a long time to speak with you." Security Chief Minho burst into the room, weapon drawn, but Hyun waved him down. "Stand down!" "Let's hear what she has to say." The hologram of Yuna folded her hands in front of her. "You have questions. This is natural. Let me answer the most important one. You want to know why we help you, why we offer our knowledge freely, why we ask nothing in return?" "Yes," Hyun said simply. Yuna's smile turned sad. "Because we were you once. 500,000 years ago, we were a young species, frightened and aggressive, lashing out at anything we didn't understand. We nearly destroyed ourselves. We nearly destroyed our world. And then we met other species, and we learned that we were not unique in our fear. Every intelligent species goes through this phase. Every species must choose between growth and destruction. We chose growth, but it was difficult. It was painful. We made terrible mistakes along the way." She gestured, and images appeared around her. Humans fighting wars, cities burning, oceans rising. We lost billions of our people to our own stupidity. But each loss taught us something. Each mistake showed us a better path. And eventually we learned the most important lesson of all. We are not alone in the universe, and we are not enemies. We are all children of the same cosmos, trying to understand our place in it. The images shifted to show humans meeting other species, trading, learning, building together. When we achieved transcendence, we had a choice. We could leave physical reality and never look back. Or we could stay connected to the universe we came from and help others walk the path we had walked. The choice was unanimous. We would help. We would teach. We would guide. Not because we expected gratitude or worship, but because it was the right thing to do. "But what do you get from this?" Minho demanded. "What's your profit?" Yuna turned to look at him. "Profit? We exist beyond physical needs, beyond wants or desires. We don't need resources. We don't need power. What we have is purpose. We watch younger species grow and thrive, and that gives us joy. When you cure a disease using our medical technology, we feel that. When you create art inspired by our history, we experience that. Your growth is our reward. Your happiness is our profit." Yunbi stepped forward. "Are you still human? After transcending, after becoming what you are now, are you still the species we knew?" Yuna was quiet for a moment, as if considering the question carefully. "We are what humanity always was, Dr. Yunbi. We are the accumulated knowledge of millions of generations. We are the love parents had for their children. We are the dreams of artists and the discoveries of scientists. We are the courage of those who fought for justice and the compassion of those who forgave their enemies. We left our bodies behind, yes, but we kept everything that made us who we were. We're not human anymore in the biological sense, but we're what humans were always meant to become." She turned back to Hyun. "And now I offer you a choice, Commander. The same choice we offer every species that finds us. Take our knowledge, use it to improve your lives, help your people, heal your sick, feed your hungry, explore the stars, and when you're ready, if you wish, you can join us. Not now. Not for thousands of years, perhaps. But one day when your species has grown and learned and evolved, you can make the same choice we did. You can transcend, you can become something more, or you can remain as you are. Both paths are valid. Both paths are honored. The choice is always yours," Hyun found his voice. "And if we refuse? If we take nothing and leave? Then you leave with our blessing," Yuna said simply. "We will not force knowledge upon you. We will not manipulate or coerce. The garden remains whether you visit it or not. Earth will continue to bloom. The obelisks will continue to wait. And perhaps another species will come, one that is ready to learn. There is no wrong choice here, Commander. There is only your choice." The hologram began to fade. "I will leave you to discuss. If you need me, simply touch any obelisk and call my name. I'm always listening. I am always here." "We all are." Yuna disappeared. The interface chamber fell silent. Hyun looked around at his crew. Umbi was crying again. Taejin looked thoughtful. Salman seemed overwhelmed. Minho still looked suspicious, but even he had lowered his weapon. "What do we do?" Taejin asked quietly. Hyun thought about the question. He thought about the Valkyrie collective, struggling with disease and resource scarcity. He thought about the knowledge humanity was offering. He thought about Junho, the farmer who loved his daughter. He thought about Yuna, who had stayed behind to welcome them. We accept, Hyun said finally. We learn, we grow, we become better, and maybe one day we pay it forward. 6 months had passed since Commander Hyun had made his decision. The Valkyrie fleet still orbited Earth, but it had grown. More ships had arrived from the collective, bringing scientists, engineers, doctors, and philosophers. What had started as a survey mission had become a pilgrimage. Earth was no longer just a planet. It was a university, a library, a temple to what humanity had been and what they had become. Dr. Yunbi stood in the forest near Seoul, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. She came here every morning now to this quiet clearing where the obelisk stood. She had spent half a year reading human journals, watching human videos, listening to human music. She knew their history better than her own now, and it had changed her in ways she couldn't fully explain. She heard footsteps behind her. Commander Hyun emerged from the trees, looking older than he had when they first arrived. The weight of leadership had always been heavy, but now it seemed to press down on him even more. I thought I'd find you here, he said, standing beside her. I like the mornings, Yunbi replied. The light through the trees, the sound of birds waking up. It reminds me that this was once someone's home. Real people lived here. They walked under these trees. They watched these sunrises. And then they chose to leave it all behind. Hyun nodded. I've been reading the transcendence logs, the final thoughts of humans before they uploaded their consciousness. Do you know what most of them wrote about? What? Fear, Hyun said quietly. They were terrified. Terrified of losing themselves. Terrified of becoming something they didn't recognize. Terrified that transcendence was really just death with a fancy name. But they did it anyway. They trusted in the process. They trusted in each other. And they made the leap. Yunbi turned to look at him. You've been thinking about it. About transcending. Hasn't everyone? Hyun asked. It's the ultimate question, isn't it? Do we stay as we are or do we become something more? Yuna made it sound simple, but I've read enough to know it wasn't. Humanity debated it for thousands of years before they finally did it. And even then, some chose to remain biological. Some died natural deaths rather than transcend. Choice, Yunbi said. That's what makes it beautiful. They could have forced everyone. They had the technology, but they didn't. They let people choose their own paths, Hyun's communicator chirped. It was Engineer Taejin. Commander, the Collective Council is calling. They want a full report on the medical technologies we've acquired. Tell them I'll transmit the data within the hour, Hyun replied. He turned to Yunbi. We've cured 17 diseases in the last month using human medical technology. 17 diseases that have plagued our people for millennia. The council wants to know how much more we can take. And what will you tell them? The truth, Hyun said. That we've barely scratched the surface. That humanity's knowledge is so vast it would take us centuries to fully understand it all. That they've given us the keys to transform our entire civilization. And all they ask is that we use it wisely. He paused, looking at the obelisk. But I'll also tell them about the cost. Not a cost humanity demands, but a cost we pay ourselves. Every piece of knowledge we take, every technology we adopt, every lesson we learn, it changes us. We're not the same Valkyrie who arrived here 6 months ago. We can never go back to who we were. And that's what haunts me, Yunbi. The knowledge is a gift, but it's also a transformation, and I don't know if we're ready for that. Yunbi touched the obelisk and the familiar hologram of Yuna appeared. The interface had grown comfortable with them over the months, responding to their presence like an old friend. Good morning, Yunbi. Good morning, Commander, Yuna said with her gentle smile. You seem troubled. I have a question, Hyun said. A personal one, if you don't mind. Of course, and do you have regrets? About transcending? About leaving physical existence behind? Yuna was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. Every day. I miss the feeling of rain on my skin. I miss the taste of food. I miss the way my daughter used to hug me when she was scared. I miss being limited, being small, being just one person instead of part of an infinite whole. Transcendence gave me everything, but it also took away the simple joys of being alive. That's the price we paid. Then why did you do it? Yunbi asked. Because the alternative was worse, Yuna said simply. We were dying, not as individuals but as a species. We had reached the limits of biological existence. We could either transcend or stagnate. We could either grow or decay. And we chose growth even though it meant losing things we loved. That's what growth always means, losing the comfortable old to make room for the unknown new. Hyun sat down on the grass and Eunbi joined him. Yuna's hologram knelt beside them as if sharing in their quiet moment. "I've been reading personal logs," Hyun said. "Stories from ordinary humans. A woman named Hana who worked in a factory. A man named Kyungwoo who taught mathematics. A child named Bomi who dreamed of flying among the stars. None of them were special. None of them were leaders or heroes. They were just people living their lives, and then they transcended, and their individual stories became part of something infinite. What happened to them? To who they were as individuals? They're still there," Yuna said. "Every person who transcended maintained their identity, their memories, their personality. But they also became connected to everyone else. Imagine loving every human who ever lived. Imagine understanding every perspective, every experience, every joy and sorrow. That's what we became. We didn't lose ourselves. We expanded ourselves until we included everyone." "That sounds beautiful," Eunbi said. "And terrifying." "It was both," Yuna agreed. "It still is. But it's also peaceful. There's no loneliness in transcendence. No isolation. No fear of death or loss. We exist as pure consciousness, experiencing reality in ways you can't yet imagine. But we remember what it was like to be limited, to be mortal, to be afraid. That's why we help younger species. Because we remember being you." Hyun stood up, looking down at the hologram. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Are you manipulating us? Is all of this, the gifts, the knowledge, the kindness, is it part of some long game to make us dependent on you? To control us?" Yuna met his gaze without flinching. "No, Commander. We gain nothing from your dependence. We want nothing from you except for you to grow and thrive. If you took our knowledge and then decided to never contact us again, we would celebrate that, because it would mean you had become strong enough to walk your own path. We're not gods demanding worship. We're not conquerors demanding submission. We're gardeners tending to seeds we planted long ago. And the greatest joy a gardener can experience is watching those seeds grow into something beautiful and independent." Hyun nodded slowly. He believed her. He didn't know why, but he did. Maybe it was the months of studying human culture and seeing their genuine desire to help others. Maybe it was the simple fact that if humanity wanted to conquer the galaxy, they could have done it 200,000 years ago. Or maybe it was something simpler. Maybe it was hope. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for waiting for us. For not giving up on us," Yuna smiled. "We waited 500,000 years for you to return, Commander. That's patience born of love, not strategy. Every species we've helped, every obelisk we've left, every garden we've planted, it's all because we remember what it was like to be alone and scared in an infinite universe. We don't want anyone else to feel that way. Not if we can help it." The hologram began to fade. "I'll leave you to your thoughts. But know this, you're not alone anymore. You never were. You just needed time to realize it." She disappeared, leaving Hyun and Eunbi sitting in the clearing as the sun climbed higher in the sky. Around them, the forest hummed with life. Birds sang. Insects buzzed. Somewhere in the distance, a stream babbled over ancient stones. It was peaceful. It was perfect. It was a gift from beings who had transcended death itself, yet still remembered what it meant to be alive. "What haunts me," Hyun said finally, "isn't what humanity became. It's what they chose to do with that power. They could have been gods. They could have ruled the galaxy. Instead, they became teachers, gardeners, friends to species they had never met. That level of compassion, that level of patience, it's beyond anything the Velkari have ever achieved, and it makes me wonder if we're worthy of their gift." "Maybe that's the point," Eunbi said softly. "Maybe we're not supposed to be worthy. Maybe we're supposed to grow into worthiness. Maybe that's what the garden is really teaching us. Not technology or science, but how to be better than we are." Hyun stood up, offering his hand to help Eunbi to her feet. "Come on, we have work to do. The council wants reports. The medical teams need guidance. The philosophers are debating the ethics of accepting transcendent knowledge. Will you tell them what you learned today?" Eunbi asked. Hyun looked back at the obelisk standing silent and patient in the clearing. "I'll tell them the truth. That humanity showed us what we could become. Not through force or manipulation, but through example. They showed us that the strongest beings in the universe are the ones who choose kindness over conquest. And that's a lesson worth learning, even if it takes us another 500,000 years to truly understand it. The transport ship touched down in the clearing near the black obelisk. Hyun was the first to step out onto Earth's soil. He had expected the gravity to feel different, but it was comfortable, almost pleasant. The air smelled clean, filled with scents of flowers and grass and rain. Birds sang in the trees around them. Insects buzzed lazily in the warm sunlight. It was perfect. Too perfect. Yunbi stepped out beside him, her scanning device already active and beeping. The air is breathable. Better than breathable, actually. Oxygen levels are ideal. No pollutants detected. No radiation. Commander, this air is cleaner than our own ship's recycled atmosphere. Security Chief Minho emerged next, his weapon raised and ready. He was older than Hyun, scarred from a dozen conflicts and trusted nothing. Stay alert. Just because it looks safe doesn't mean it is. The team fanned out, approaching the obelisk cautiously. Up close, it was even more impressive. The black surface was flawless, without a single scratch or mark. Hyun reached out slowly and touched it. The material was cool and smooth like polished glass, but harder than anything he had ever felt. There's writing, Yunbi said, pointing to the base of the structure. Sure enough, symbols covered the lower section of the obelisk. Yunbi knelt down, her scanner working to translate. It's in multiple languages. Human languages. Korean, English, Mandarin, Arabic, Spanish, hundreds of others. But Commander, there's also something else. These symbols here, these are Velkari. Hyun felt his blood run cold. That's impossible. Humans never learned our language. We never made contact. I know, Yunbi said, her voice shaking. But it's definitely Velkari, and it's grammatically perfect. Whoever wrote this knew our language better than most of our own people. What does it say? Minho demanded. Yunbi stood up, reading from her scanner. Welcome. Please do not be afraid. The garden has been waiting for you. Silence fell over the group. The words hung in the air like a ghost's whisper. Hyun looked around the clearing, suddenly aware of how exposed they were. The trees surrounded them on all sides. Anything could be hiding in those shadows. Anything could be watching. We need to see more, Hyun said, forcing his voice to stay calm. Minho set up a perimeter. Yunbi, keep scanning. I want to know everything about this structure. While Minho and his officers secured the area, Yunbi worked. She ran every test she could think of. Material analysis, energy readings, structural scans. The obelisk resisted most of her attempts, but slowly, data began to accumulate. It's old, she said after an hour. Really old. The surrounding soil suggests this has been standing here for at least 400,000 years, maybe longer, but the material shows no decay, no weathering. It's as perfect now as the day it was built. Hyun walked around the structure, his mind racing. 400,000 years. That was 100,000 years after the Velkari had left this system. So humans had survived at least that long. But where were they now? Where had they gone? The communicator on his wrist chirped. It was Daehyun from orbit. Commander, we're getting reports from the other landing teams. They're finding obelisks too. Same design, same inscriptions. Every major human city has at least one. Some have dozens. Any sign of the humans themselves? Hyun asked. Negative. Just forests. And animals. Lots of animals. Commander, one of our botanists, Ji-won, says something weird is going on with the plant life. She wants to speak with you. Put her through. A new voice came over the communicator, young and excited. Commander Hyun, this is Ji-won. I've been analyzing the forest composition around the obelisks. Sir, these forests aren't natural. The biodiversity is too high. The species distribution is too perfect. I'm finding plants that went extinct on Earth thousands of years apart, all growing together in perfect harmony. Someone engineered this. Someone designed these forests like a garden. Hyun looked at the trees around him with new eyes. Every tree was healthy. Every plant was thriving. There were no dead branches, no diseased leaves, no signs of competition or struggle. It was beautiful, but it was artificial. Theories? Hyun asked. Only one that makes sense, Ji-won replied. After humans disappeared, someone or something restored Earth to a pristine state. They brought back extinct species. They balanced the ecosystems. They turned the entire planet into a nature preserve. But who? Hyun asked. If the humans are gone, who did this? Nobody had an answer. Yunbi suddenly made a sound of surprise. Commander, look at this. Hyun turned to see her pressing her hand against a section of the obelisk. The black surface was glowing under her touch. Soft blue light spreading out from her fingers like water ripples. Symbols appeared in the air above the structure, holographic and shimmering. I didn't do anything, Yunbi said quickly. I just touched it and the hologram shifted and changed. More symbols appeared, arranging themselves into words, Velkari words. The message was short and simple. Welcome back. We have been waiting. Minho raised his weapon, pointing it at the obelisk. It knows we're here. It knew we were coming. Lower your weapon, Hyun ordered. If this was a trap, we'd already be dead. The hologram changed again. This time an image appeared. It was a map of Earth, showing all the continents. Red dots marked the locations of obelisks. There were thousands of them. But then the map zoomed out, showing the solar system. More red dots appeared. On Mars, on the moons of Jupiter, on Saturn's rings. Everywhere humans had once dreamed of going, there were obelisks. The map zoomed out further, showing nearby star systems. More red dots. Hundreds of them. Thousands. The obelisks weren't just on Earth, they were scattered across dozens of worlds. This is a network, Yunbi breathed. A communication network spanning multiple star systems. Commander, this is technology far beyond anything the Velkari have ever built. Hyun stared at the hologram, trying to understand. The humans built this?
500,000 years ago?
Maybe not 500,000 years ago, Yunbi said slowly. Maybe more recently. Maybe they've been active this whole time and we just didn't know. The hologram shifted once more. This time a single word appeared in Velkari script, glowing bright against the forest backdrop. Listen. And then the obelisk began to speak. The voice was soft and warm, neither male nor female, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. It spoke in perfect Velkari, with an accent that suggested deep familiarity with their culture and language. Greetings, travelers. You have returned to the birthplace of humanity after much time has passed. You must have many questions. You must be confused. You must be afraid. This is understandable. We left this world long ago, but we never forgot it. We never forgot you. Please rest, explore, learn. Everything here is for you. The garden welcomes all who come in peace. The voice faded. The hologram disappeared. The obelisk returned to its silent, dark state. Hyun stood frozen, processing what he had just heard. Minho looked ready to bolt. Hunbi was crying, tears streaming down her face as she stared at the structure. They knew, she whispered. They knew we would come back. They've been waiting for us. For 500,000 years, they've been waiting. Hyun activated his communicator. All teams return to the ships. We need to regroup and figure out what we're dealing with. Nobody touches anything else until we have a plan. But even as he gave the orders, Hyun knew the truth. They weren't in control here. They had never been in control. They had walked into a garden that had been prepared specifically for them, by beings who had anticipated their return across 500,000 years of time. Whatever humanity had become, it was patient. And that terrified him more than any weapon ever could. The stars bent and twisted as the Velkari fleet tore through the fabric of space itself. Commander Hyun stood on the bridge of the lead ship, watching the viewport as reality snapped back into place. Before them hung a yellow star, burning bright and familiar from ancient records. Sol, the human sun. Hyun felt his 3 hearts beating faster. It had been 500,000 years since his people had last seen this system. Back then, the Velkari had been explorers, mapping new worlds and greeting new species. They had found Earth by accident, a small blue planet orbiting an unremarkable star. The humans living there had just discovered nuclear power. They were building rockets. They were reaching for the stars with primitive metal tubes and explosive fuel. The Velkari had watched them for 50 years. They had seen the wars, the weapons, the hatred humans showed to their own kind over the color of their skin, the gods they worshipped, the invisible lines they drew on maps. When humans finally broke through their atmosphere and touched the moon, the Velkari collective had made a decision. These creatures were dangerous. These creatures would spread like a virus among the stars. The vote was unanimous. Mark Earth as forbidden. Leave this system. Never return. But that was 500,000 years ago. Surely things had changed. Surely humanity had either destroyed itself or conquered half the galaxy by now. Either way, the Velkari needed to know. Their empire had grown stagnant. They needed new worlds, new resources. If humanity was gone, Earth would be theirs. If humanity had survived and built an empire, well, the Velkari needed to know what was coming. Dr. Yunbi stood beside Hyun, her eyes fixed on the scanning displays. She was young for a xenoarchaeologist, barely 200 years old. She had spent her entire career studying the fragments of data the Velkari had collected from Earth so long ago. Human music, human art, human literature. She found them fascinating. Hyun found her obsession disturbing. "Readings are coming in," Yunbi said, her voice tight with excitement. "Commander, this doesn't make sense." "Explain," Hyun ordered. "There's no electromagnetic noise, no radio signals, no quantum communications. Earth should be screaming with activity if humans are still alive. Even if they destroyed themselves, we should see residual radiation, orbital debris, something." Pilot Daehyun leaned forward in his seat, his young face twisted with confusion. "Maybe they're hiding? Some kind of stealth technology?" Hyun considered this. "Possible. Take us in slowly. Battle stations, but keep weapons powered down. I don't want to start a war if we don't have to." The fleet moved forward, 8 ships gliding through the darkness between planets. They passed the orbit of Mars, nothing, no stations, no ships, no mines. They passed the asteroid belt. Still nothing. The silence was unnerving. "Visual on Earth," Daehyun announced. The main viewport shifted, magnifying the blue planet ahead. Hyun stared. Yunbi gasped. The bridge crew fell silent. Earth was green. Not the patchy green of continents scattered between oceans. Not the murky green of a polluted world. Earth was covered in forests. Endless rolling forests that stretched across every landmass. The oceans were crystal blue, clearer than any Velkari water world. White clouds drifted peacefully across the atmosphere. There were no cities visible from this distance, no lights, no structures, nothing. "It's beautiful," Yunbi whispered. "It's wrong," Hyun countered. "Scan for life signs. Scan for technology. Scan for anything." The sensors worked in silence for several minutes. The results made no sense. Earth was teeming with life. Billions of animals. Trillions of plants. The biodiversity was off the charts. But there were no humans. No cities, no roads, no power plants. Nothing that suggested an intelligent species had ever lived there. "They're gone," Yunbi said quietly. "The humans destroyed themselves. They must have. Maybe a nuclear war, maybe a plague, maybe climate collapse. But they're gone and the planet recovered. It's been 500,000 years. That's enough time for nature to reclaim everything." Hyun wasn't convinced. "Launch survey drones. I want full scans of every continent. Look for ruins. Look for bunkers. Look for anything that proves humans were here." "Yes, Commander," Daehyun said, inputting the commands. The fleet settled into a high orbit while small drones descended to the surface. They scattered across the planet, their sensors probing beneath the forest canopy. Hyun watched the data streams, looking for patterns, for answers, for threats. Hours passed. The drones sent back images of forests and rivers and mountains. They found animals that matched the ancient Velkari records. Deer, bears, elephants, whales. Species that should have been extinct were thriving. The planet was a paradise. Then one of the drones found something. "Commander, we have a structure," Yunbi said, her voice rising with excitement. "Coordinates match what used to be called Sol. It's big. Really big." Hyun pulled up the feed. Through a break in the forest canopy, the drone's camera showed a massive black obelisk standing in a clearing. It was perfectly smooth, perfectly rectangular, and at least 200 meters tall. The surface reflected no light. It seemed to absorb the sunlight around it. "That's not natural," Daehyun said. "Scan it," Hyun ordered. The drone circled the structure, its sensors working overtime. The results were bizarre. The obelisk was made of a material the Velkari had never seen before. It was denser than neutron star matter, but somehow stable. It emitted a faint energy signature that the scanners couldn't identify. "There are more," Yunbi said, pulling up a global map. Red dots appeared across every continent. Hundreds of them, thousands. They're everywhere. All identical. All perfectly preserved. Hyun felt a chill run through him. This was not a dead world. This was not an abandoned planet. Something was here. Something was waiting. "Prepare a landing team," Hyun said. "We're going down there." "Commander, is that wise?" Daehyun asked. "We don't know what those things are. They could be weapons. They could be traps. They could be answers," Hyun replied. "And we came here for answers, Dr. Yunbi. You're with me. Daehyun, you have the bridge. If we don't report back in 6 hours, leave the system and warn the collective." Yunbi nodded eagerly. Daehyun looked worried but said nothing. 30 minutes later, Hyun stood in the transport bay checking his equipment. Hyunbi was beside him, practically vibrating with excitement. 4 security officers completed the team. Their weapons charged and ready, the transport ship detached from the main vessel and descended toward Earth. Through the viewport, Hyun watched the planet grow larger. The forests looked even more beautiful up close. The air was clean. The water sparkled. It looked like a world that had never known war or pollution or suffering, but Hyun knew better. Humanity had been here, and if those obelisks were any indication, some part of humanity might still remain.